Have you ever felt like you wanted a clone to take over your life and you could just, go swimming? That is the basic premise of this collaboration between artist Poppy and director Paul Trillo. And it actually happened.
They actually did train Chatbot on all of Poppy's YouTube scripts so that she could do on-stage interviews and let the Chatbot feed her the answers in real time. And I thought it was hilarious, and that was kind of the inspiration for the film.
I'm Joe Posner, and I'm guest hosting this mini-series of Digital Spaghetti about AI and how creators are navigating it. Paul has been pushing the boundaries of filmmaking. In 2018, he directed this 9-minute single-shot film, all filmed on a drone. 8 years later, he's making even wilder stuff.
But as you get closer to what the audience sees, I think that's where you really have to insert your agency and the human authorship and the team collaboration.
Paul is also the co-founder of Asteria Studios, and they're training their own models using all licensed footage to avoid the massive intellectual property theft that is happening around other models.
The tech industry, they're both selling a product and stealing at the same time, which is crazy.
In this episode, we're going deeper into the film that Paul made with Poppy, but most importantly, we're going into how someone who is pushing the boundaries of filmmaking and technology draws red lines around it too. I want to dive in on your latest.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, whatever we want to talk about. Yeah.
Just press play?
Yeah, let's see what happens.
And then I'm going to pause it whenever we want to talk, but you feel free to pause it too.
Is it really me?
It's you in the sense that it's not anyone else. And if it's not anyone, then it must be...
You. Amalgamated to perfection. Every word you've ever said, every sentence you've ever uttered, every lyric you've ever sung, it's all right there. And all you have to do is listen and repeat.
Is this
practical?
That's practical.
Yeah, for
okay,
sure.
Cool. I was going to be I feel like that's real. It is real.
It is real, yeah.
But the uncanniness, you're playing with the uncanniness, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I think the whole point of this film was to make people question wait, what is going on here? What is real? What's not real? And blurred those lines, especially, this was made 2 years ago actually, but it hasn't been released yet. The premise of the film, if we want to set it up, is about Poppy, the fictional version of Poppy. She has there's a multiverse of Poppies if you kind of go deep into the lore. But this version of Poppy who wants to unplug from her life. She's emotionally drained from personal reasons. She's drained from the living up to her identity in the eyes of her fans. And I think all of us maybe could relate to this, this sort of social anxieties of just having to constantly perform. So she gets this sort of ominous call to test out a device that feeds her all the answers that she needs to say at any given moment, which then translates into actually taking action in certain cases. But basically a way of why don't you not have to worry your pretty little brain and just let the AI version of you give you all the perfect answers, so that you could kind of relieve yourself of the stresses of social interaction. And this is actually probably something that people are already doing, having AI write emails or write a text response to someone. Meta has AI into their DM system now. So AI is already taking over the authority or agency of our voice. And I think there's something, both good and bad about that. There's some things that simply we don't need to waste our mental energy focused on. But it also starts to create this brain smoothing effect, and we're not challenging ourselves. We don't have the friction of daily life as much as we used to with AI. So that's kind of the premise of the film. And we see what happens when Poppy gives away all her kind of agency, and she's essentially a very passive character in this story, which is a difficult thing to get an audience on board with.
Wait, let's keep watching. I have many more questions.
This is a real prop. I'll just shout out my friend Ali Isaacson, who's the production designer, and she pitched this idea. I just wanted a little ear bug, that's in her ear the whole time. There was nothing called out in the script, and Ali kind of helped design this. There is some like AI, like generative fill Photoshop that happens.
Yeah.
Like that's AI.
Because just the part right there.
Insane AI right
That's
there.
AI.
Yeah. This
Come
part,
on, Paul.
that part right there is AI. And then it's
I can't believe that
now there's no more AI.
Yep, it's like here is how actual VFX artists use AI in some cases.
Yeah, exactly. So this is when people like draw these lines of like what, they used AI in this? It's like, we like painted out something that has been done for decades at this point.
Yeah.
So there's very subtle uses of AI throughout the whole piece. This is probably the most subtle one.
Definitely, but it also gets to something that I want to do on and off through this conversation, so I might as well set it up now. So I want to do this experiment. We built a version of this online as well, so I hope to talk to you about your moral framework for AI, but I really want to find out the audience's moral framework as well.
Great. I love that.
So this one is based on my favorite book. I'm going to read you this quote. It is the assumption of this book that a work of art is a gift, not a commodity, or to state the modern case with more precision, that works of art exist simultaneously in two economies, a market economy and a gift economy. Only one of these is essential, however. A work of art can survive without the market, but where there is no gift, there is no art. Like the horizontal axis of this, to me, is the sort of priceless commodity axis that we all exist in both of these places. We all must do things for both of these if we're going to be working artists.
Right.
But that I would rather do things that push me towards what feels like a gift to the community, what's bringing me closer to an audience or to just an individual. And then there's the curse axis, which is your morality. Are you helping create a world that feels like a world you want to live in, like a utopia, or are you actively creating the dystopia? Right, to categorize different use cases.
Yeah.
And you just brought up one that is on our list of just like, we're trying to kind of get...
Oh, this is a game.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like...
Sort of.
Right, like how do you categorize this one?
Generative fill, there's been versions of this in Photoshop for, again, decades.
Yeah.
Going back to, I think, early 2000s. This is just the next version of it. And wouldn't you want a better version of the same tool as technology?
It doesn't feel like
better?
one of the more controversial uses at all. It's old, but it's based on the same technology.
We're getting really nerdy about very niche VFX stuff, but like generative fill is creating something new, but based on the context around it.
Yes.
The other ways you would paint things before is like with like a duplicate stamp tool,
right?
Or they had a bad version of generative fill, kind of like early machine learning days, where it's kind of like taking the edges of something and trying to like make a patchwork of like what was near it.
Did you ever use Kai's Power Goo?
No,
but this is
What's
a pre-Photoshop photo tool that did this.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's terrible.
Yeah. And sometimes you can catch it in films when there's like, you're like, wait, that tree or that bush it's cloned, and it's like the same bush over here, or like grass, and like kind of shoddy VFX where it's like they're trying to patch over like a dead piece of grass and they just duplicate the same thing. So anyways, it's not something I think VFX artists would be like, oh, I missed the old shitty way of doing things.
Right.
So what happens on this side of the curse chart?
Let me do my helper thing. So like over here is like you as a commodity and user of commodities. And so if you're kind of like replacing something you hate doing, I think it's like over here.
Right.
If you are replacing something that's also like hurting other people, I feel like that's where we get into the stuff that people hate online, the slop zone. And then I would say this over here where it's like it's maybe making you a better collaborator, but maybe you don't like that. So like for me, this is like, with a non-video version would be like, I asked ChatGPT to write my wedding vows, maybe. But in a video context, it's like, how do I feel about like asking AI to pretend to be my favorite editor and giving me feedback, right? Like I feel kind of okay about it, kind of not. Right. Like
it's helpful,
but
you feel a little guilty
so
about
these are
it.
my helper, but I also don't want to like, I want to let you interpret this how you want to interpret it.
Let's put this,
just
fill is not really bringing people closer to the community. It's an invisible effect.
Exactly. Right.
But it's,
there you go.
useful.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
And I can unsync whenever I want?
Yes, of course, but you won't want to do that, trust me. Just take a look at all the terms and conditions.
Is this a kind of traditional comp right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
But there is AI again.
How did you use AI in this shot?
This is them asking her to sign away this agreement that says, like, we're going to train on all your past persona, all your digital identity that exists out there, and recreate you so you can have the best answers possible to be yourself. So this contract is actually generated in ChatGPT.
Oh, of course.
And I said, make the most like aggressive, predatory contract you could possibly imagine. So people,
oh my God.
Yeah.
So people have been reading this.
So if you zoom in,
oh my God, yes.
on it, it's basically saying your life rights,
yes.
every
single inch of you.
Yeah. Is now owned by us in perpetuity.
Wow, I've never felt that way.
Yeah. And this is me being lazy. I was like, I'm not going to write the legalese for this. And I think it's actually conceptually better if AI
feels appropriate.
Uses it. I did do some more generative fill here on the sides,
yeah.
like got rid of a chalkboard and stuff. But yeah, so we did, and there's like some wire work removal that we did.
Nice.
But this table was kind of fun. So this was the concept art for this when I was generating concept art with AI for this, and one of the pieces of concept art was a glowing table when she was sitting with these people, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. It'd be cool to actually physically create that. And we're scouting this room. This is at my commercial production company, Art Classes. This is at their old office. We were scouting this large conference room table, and we're like, how should we do this? Like, we're gonna have to build this whole like Astera tube panel thing, diffusion, and it was gonna be like a big build. They weren't gonna be able to like stick their legs underneath the table, and this whole thing. And then the gaffer saw on the wall there was like 2 TV screens that were the exact same size. And he's like, why don't we just put that on the table? And so these are just 2 large, like 80-inch TV screens that we laid on the table and used it, and just had a piece of white.
And you just comped it, right, that you don't see.
So there's tape that's right here that is the seam of the 2 TVs meeting that is just comped out. I mean, it's like not an amazing job.
Yeah, but it lights the scene really well. It makes it like look. It totally sells the entire thing. Yeah,
totally. And it creates this surreal thing. And I think as we were doing it, originally the contract wasn't even part of the script. And then I was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if this was like a giant iPad or something, and it's unexpected and whatever. It has this monolithic kind of Kubrick framing to it.
I love this because I feel like when I'm doing this exercise, I want the uses of it that are pushing me to collaborate better with people.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right?
Yeah. And like your work, right? That you were doing the mental work to prepare for that shoot. And like the fact that you're using a computer to do that mental work, it's like, well, that's nothing new. Like you would have just been doing the research elsewhere.
Exactly.
But that you found something that's so fascinating. And it's like literally the opposite of, let me find it. I feel like we have, generating storyboards. I feel like that's pretty close to generating style frames.
Right.
Where like, I feel like, I mean, where are you putting that?
This film is specific in that it was like, we're doing a lot of it traditionally and practically, but also how much do we conceptually let AI like influence the process?
Right. Oh my God.
So
how did you?
Like some of it was like, okay, let's give it some parameters and see what it spits out in terms of like concept imagery for this, like pasting chunks of the script in and then seeing what happens, as well as all of Poppy's AI lines. And we have a real Poppy chatbot.
Can you tell me what is this chatbot?
Okay.
And can I go talk to
potentially, yeah,
the most perfect Poppy?
Yeah. So the film was inspired by Poppy's performance art piece she did with a friend of mine, Vince Lynch. They actually did train an AI chatbot on all of Poppy's YouTube scripts.
Oh my God.
And made, she has a very specific tone and persona. And so they kind of recreated, and it's just kind of random, esoteric, creepy, mixed with sweet. It's like disturbing mixed with sweet is her like.
I don't know if I would call God is Dead as random.
Yeah. Yeah. That part I actually wrote.
Okay, cool.
But
honestly, glad to hear it.
yeah, exactly. It would be concerning if that came from AI.
Yes.
But yeah, so she did this performance art piece where she did train an AI on her past YouTube videos. They made a real-time chatbot so that she could do like on-stage interviews and let the AI feed her the answers in real time as Vince would ask her questions. And so she was kind of like a marionette doll for herself. And I thought it was hilarious. And that was kind of the inspiration for the film. And I was like, we did this event at Cannes a few years ago and showing odd uses of AI.
Yeah.
This is 2023. I think we did it. So it was less like, this was pre-strikes and all that.
But also during the time of like Stable Diffusion makes some like really, really crazy, scary looking stuff.
So it was that era.
Yeah, exactly.
When everyone's like, look at how like wonky and janky this is, but also should we be terrified?
Right. Hard to be terrified
but like
when
it wasn't
uncanny.
like fully scary at the time.
Yeah.
Because it was so wonky, and her chatbot like also hallucinated and didn't necessarily always like answer accurately, but she would still say the line that she's hearing in real time. And so the chatbot was also used to help write the AI lines in the script.
That honestly, it's so good. Like I really love that like in particular, because I was going to ask you, maybe let's do it anyways, right?
Okay.
But I feel like what you're describing also maybe gets at where my framework falls down. You said the magic word again. Yeah. We should do it. But it's also like, in the context of this piece, it's genuinely hard. I don't know how I think anymore in the context of the piece. I'm more thinking about me, right? So let's do it for you.
In the context of the piece, this is critical. This is not like...
Right. It's like, it's just literally like it doesn't exist.
It's commentary on the idea of the AI clone versus like doing it like a Tilly Norwood kind of like, hey, this is so much easier to not to use actors.
But then you described while we were talking about this, how you have complicated feelings about it, right? Yeah. That like in the context of the piece, it's over here. But what about like
for me,
what about Paul?
If this is replacing actors, I would put this down here. Right. Like I love working with actors, even
just put it there.
Even the shitty ones.
We can make another one that's more specific that you might put elsewhere.
But in terms of like it being able to suggest a better way to write an email, I would put it like here.
There is something very different about how you at Asteria think about AI, right? And I feel like it's just important to also, you set up the film so well, and I realized we kind of skipped over the past.
Sure. Like, who am I?
Like, why am I so excited about the way that you're approaching this? And that's something that you're doing here at Asteria. So can you tell me about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in Max Sennett Studios right now, the home base for Asteria. It's also an old silent film studio built in 1916. So we're very pointedly acknowledging film history here and hopefully carrying the torch in the right way. It was started with the intention of like, okay, if the tech industry is going to really, really market the hell out of this technology and cram it down everyone's throats and do the studio rounds, like all OpenAI, everyone's like out there, really pushing this technology hard and showing how disruptive it is and training on they're both selling a product and stealing at the same time, which is crazy. I think we all came together with this kind of shared philosophy. If this isn't going away, how do we use it in the best way possible? How do we use it in the way that is the most artistically interesting and challenging and new, as well as how do we keep the traditional process intact, which means hiring animators, VFX artists, filmmakers, writers, like all of that stuff. So we're not like an AI studio, but we're a creative studio that hasn't drawn a line around technology. So we want to usher it in the most kind of ethical, responsible way possible. Last year, we spent our time co-developing a clean video model called Mary, which was co-developed with Moon Valley and trained 100% on licensed data. To this point, it's the only video model that exists that has been fully licensed.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Whatever you think of this kind of contract, at least everybody did sign one.
Yeah, everyone that like
as
yes,
opposed
exactly.
to the other option, which is also happening.
Yeah, which is no contract at all.
Right.
So we co-developed that, but it was actually designed again as like a VFX and animation aid versus like a zero shot. You're gonna do your whole film with it. It was gonna be something that kind of plugs into the process as like a render or whatever. I could get additional coverage with this, or I could extend the shot, or it was like more of a practical thing than like what you're seeing with some of the models out of China, which are just kind of like full blown. It's doing the editing, everything, the acting for you. It was really driven by control. So there's keyframes, timeline, there's most of it is being animated, or you're shooting material and you're like doing rough composites, and then you're kind of letting it render it for you.
This really spoke to me in the same way that I feel like how people relate to like music versus like Muzak, essentially, right? That one kind of music has a lot of context and care, and you have something wrapped up in the stories around the music, versus like Muzak is also made by amazing musicians.
Sure.
But what is also true about it is it's like generally like solely a commodity. And it is funny to me.
It's like music as content or something.
And that like, right. These
it's
kind
like
of
cheap music that a restaurant can license, or, Home Depot can play or whatever.
And in some ways that is a little bit of a defense of some of those other models, right? That there's plenty of use cases where that might be ethically uncomplicated, a decision to make for some people. But as someone that wants to be a fan of something, it's not necessarily given me a lot to work with.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like we wanted to retain craft. So Muzak may have the illusion of craft, but it doesn't have real craft in the way of like there's like someone that like poured their heart into something. And
you really can feel that. Like that is not a thing that you can automate, really.
Yeah, exactly. And sure, there's applications. I mean, if people want to make something, who am I to like judge them? Me of all people, who is anyone to judge anyone for wanting to make something that they couldn't make before? I think if it's on the internet and you're not monetizing it, it's fan art or whatever it is, have fun. As soon as it makes its way into an industry with economics and, guilds and rules, there's a reason why we have those guilds and rules and economic equations, so that it can be sustaining. Yeah. And as soon as any of that gets disrupted, as you've seen with streaming, the sustenance of that industry kind of falls into peril. And so I think the existential threat is very real with AI throwing off all the rules and everything. And so we want to be this kind of stopgap that is open to new technology and not, being, because I think it is a very special moment for us and to be living right now, as scary as it is. There's only like so many times where there's a new technology that can create an image. If you count, painting is a technology. Taking a tool to mark something is a technology. Photography is a technology. I'd say film is just an evolution of photography. So not really a big jump there.
No.
It's
just 24.
And then it was like, computers synthesizing the 3D world. That was like the next leap from photography.
Toy Story was a huge moment.
Yeah. And so now we have something that can synthesize something in an entirely new way. I think as an artist, it's sort of your duty, if you're a sort of multimodal artist, to just investigate what that is, without judgment. But it doesn't mean you can't critique it, or, once you've got your hands on it. So this film comes, just to pull it full circle, the film comes as a reaction of me having played with the AI tools, not like prejudging something before using it. This is like post me using these tools, understanding their benefits, but then also understanding their pitfalls and what it means to like retain our humanity at the end.
I love it, and I really, really appreciate that you have Larry and David Ellison sitting at the table.
Yeah. This is all AI, obviously.
I was gonna say, this is something that I wouldn't have thought was.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that's
until
actually,
you start frame through it, it's like this is the most
her
frightening
arm
thing.
is like stretched there. It's processed to like look like it's
so good.
Analog.
I also feel like it's like this implicit criticism of like this is what, like, I come from the documentary film world, and like everyone like gets very, very protective of archival footage in a way that I think is almost like look, I am for truth, and like most images are not true.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
It's really interesting because we're working on a documentary right now with a ton of archival, and how do we like retain the truth of those original images?
Oh my God, how do you? I mean,
you work with with an archivist, but there's certain images that are so degraded that those aren't the truth either. When someone's face is bleached out, and the paper is torn,
I love it.
And even sepia tone is a reaction. It's not like the original, what the photograph was even supposed to look like. That is a distortion of the truth and reality. That if anything, if you can back something with research, both like a LLM research as well as like an archivist that's looking at it, you can actually potentially get closer to the truth with AI in certain cases if the image is completely degraded. If you're trying to upscale an image of JFK and it looks like a Ken doll, like I'd say that's like where it's like, is that just the truth? But if it's something where someone's face is already missing, it's a non-historical person, or it's blown out, or the color is shifted in a way that's not desired, I think there are ways where we can actually inject AI into documentary space. There's flashes of realism there. That's an AI transition.
Oh my God.
So
I love this stuff too, because I feel like, I mean, this is kind of actually pretty different from what I've mostly seen from your work, where you're leaning into the uncanny as opposed to figuring out a way to just express your vision, like your own art, just like clearly.
Yeah.
This is like, no, we want it to feel fucking weird.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So stable diffusion to help just wipe her face off, and then transitioned into a video clip. So now it's real. So
did you use like a smoke reference video to make that transition? It
no,
looks kind
it
of
was
like
just
smoke.
weird prompting. Yeah.
Weird. Oh my God.
Yeah, just saying morphine mutating, bulging out of skin. And this is all obviously AI up until the final frame.
I will always do and say the right thing, because I am the most perfect person. I am the most perfect person who will always do and say the right thing.
This is such a beautiful shot. I just want to like game recognize game here. Like
this was
just like,
this was me compositing this. This was, I mean, I still see flaws in it. Like there's some like white around her fingers there that bothers me. But yeah, this was shot practically. I didn't just like take this image of her and scale it in different ways. I thought like, cause we shot everything anamorphic, like you actually, you get distortion. So like you can feel the anamorphic lens bending.
So you had her just
take a step.
Her position
very tedious on set
every time.
And it was kind of just like a trust me, bro kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
because I'm the VFX supervisor and the director and the writer, and so it's a lot of it's just in my head.
And as
editor,
the VFX supervisor, how did you rotoscope every single one of her fingers and almost get it perfect?
Yeah, there's a mix of luma key.
Oh, nice.
Lighten and darken mode, blending lighten and darken mode.
Yeah, you're doing the straight. This is what I was doing like 2009.
Yeah, exactly. And then a little bit of roto brush from After Effects, but like, wasn't super helpful in certain instances of this, especially when it gets soft.
Yeah.
So, Right,
because you had, although it like, this is crazy looking.
But I do think if I were to go back to this shot, I would probably run it through an AI and a really light pass, like 10% AI to help recomposite all this. Because AI has an understanding of lens fall off and lighting and edges and how edges work, and like most AI training shouldn't have these kind of garbage mats like built in. So I think that's where like you re-render it to get the desired result after you've already done the rotoscope work and all and comp work.
This is
and all
so
that.
fascinating though, because I feel like that's a concept that like wouldn't have existed in VFX before.
Right.
Because it's not just like that you would re-render it, but you could say, I had the $100 version of this lens.
Yeah.
Give me the $100,000 version because I ain't buying that.
Sure.
But like,
Yeah.
why should I?
Right.
Is that-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very real, especially for independent filmmaking, whatever,
Yes.
like just to plus it up a little bit.
No, I feel like this is something that like I genuinely, it's so deeply feel where it's like, and I felt when I was in After Effects every single day, where it's like, I now have this immense power to make it look the way I want to. So shouldn't I try to make it look as good as I can?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, and sometimes I have money to hire other people. But
Sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and you just want to immerse the audience at the end of the day.
Right.
And the audience isn't really, I think you have an audience that, might appreciate nerding out on this stuff, but
Right.
the general audience doesn't really
They're never
care.
gonna, yeah, they're never.
Like how
yeah.
much AI was used to like help blend the like deep focus background
Right.
garbage matte. So like
Yeah.
you're gonna have to pick your battles.
Before I forget my stupid game, let's keep playing it.
So
Re-rendering. Where are you going to put re-rendering?
I'm pretty big.
Oh, you didn't do it, but you would have done it.
I've done it on other things. I'd say
Yeah.
even Cuco uses a lot of re-rendering.
Okay,
even
tell me
though
about
it's-
that,
Even
then.
though it's like animated, we used AI rendering, like a custom model that we trained to add in the aesthetic that was closer to the original artist who like designed the work. So I would say, yeah, I'd put that like
This is something
over
that I
here,
feel
maybe.
massively positive about. I feel like you would probably put this in the same place.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So can we see this? Because this is
Yeah.
something I genuinely like. I have spent so long tracing my own drawings, like,
Yeah.
frame
Oh,
by
cool.
frame, right? And the idea that like maybe I don't have to do that anymore is
That's
like
right.
really
Yeah.
like I like that idea.
Totally.
Can you show me it?
The Cuco video.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Let's find it. This was a animated project I did last year. Collaborating with Cuco, who's a LA musician, and Paul Flores, who's a visual artist who comes kind of from the street art world in LA, but is combining like cartoons and R. Crumb and bringing it into like the high art gallery space. Him and Cuco had already developed kind of looks for his visuals, and I really responded to it when they came to me because it reminded me of kind of MTV liquid television style animation that I
Yes.
grew up on.
Yeah.
So I did all the storyboards here, Procreate, whatever.
Right.
Originally applied to school for drawing and painting. So
Yeah.
I tried to. These are
This is a
terrible
nice
examples, but I try to.
You're not handing this part off yet.
No, I'm not. I still do my own boards when I have the time, or work with a board artist.
Would you put that in slop, or would you just say, I don't know, anyone can do it?
Generating storyboards from nothing. I don't know. I'd put that like not full slop because
Yes.
like if you go and do something with it, I don't know, maybe
Yeah. Cool.
closer to here.
Right, but that you also could imagine, right, that it
But
actually
this
you
could be
work with-
abused. This could be abused,
Of
a
course.
lot, so you have to be careful. This is Paul Flores's original hand-drawn work.
It's so beautiful.
And so we trained a motion model as well as multiple image models on Cuco and the assets. And then we worked with him to identify the generated assets that he felt best represented his style. And then
The most perfect Paul Flores.
yeah, exactly. And then we took those and individually, asset by asset, built out a 3D layout of the world. This is in After Effects. And then we also built a version in Blender. This is where we're getting into re-rendering. So we made this kind of like PS1 looking Parappa the Rappa world.
Oh my God. I haven't heard someone reference Parappa the Rappa in a long time. That's awesome.
Bring it back. I want that IP actually.
I mean, it's probably gettable.
Yeah. and then so that's a 3D camera move done in After Effects that's being completely re-rendered, as well as the 2D sketches from our artists that told me, they're like, please don't make me draw all these damn dots everywhere, because Paul Flores' style is this kind of R. Crumb stippled ink look that's hyper detailed as well as it's simple. So that's what like an AI re-rendering process looks like. So we're still animating it, 2D, 3D, but then we're kind of gluing it all back together using his model, and it helps. We had 5 or 6 different 2D artists animating these things.
Yes.
It kind of helps get everyone in the same style because they all had different sort of aesthetics.
I honestly, I saw
Yeah.
this and I thought I saw the future. Like
Oh my God, wow.
I was really like so taken by this. I know you heard this from lots of other people too, but like it was so meaningful to me because I could see, right, that I also want to be like Paul Flores, right? And now here is a step-by-step guide for me to push myself to that kind of place.
Yeah.
Is this something that like I can just go do? Or, I mean, I feel like it's kind of not, right? Like I would need to be like, oh, man, I really want to work with Paul because he knows how to navigate this.
I helped build out the pipeline and the workflow of it and did some of the animation myself, but there's no way I could have done this by myself.
Yeah.
And this is the antithesis of the like, oh, look what I did in my bedroom in 24 hours kind of AI. This took 3 months, and you can see there was, about 25 people that worked on the project. So
but I do mean the specific thing of
I have this hand style.
I have a ton of images of it. And I
you.
want to go from that to infinite.
Yeah.
Like
there are a world I could help point you that direction later.
What do you recommend? Like honestly though, creators watching this, right? I feel like it is just genuinely less morally complicated to be like, well, if I'm just training on my own work, like that's fine. Like where would you start?
So if you really want to be safe and secure about your work, your work's probably already online. Who knows? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, but they already stole all my shit for sure.
Most likely. But the way this was done was all on local machines. So we had 4090s and A100s and A6000s and some beefy like NVIDIA machines. So it was all trained like on a single tower, not connecting to the internet. Training, all day, overnight, getting various versions of the model until we get the right one. So it's a closed system. And then we're using Comfy UI.
Right.
And there's better interfaces where you could potentially just draw loose sketches and then run that through almost in semi-real time to get Comfy UI to spit out something that is like a auto-corrected version of your sketch.
And then you can kind of just plug in whatever model, like that you obviously, like you guys helped make this one model, but you kind of could use that system with any of the models.
That's right. Yeah. So we've done,
depending on your own morality.
We've done oil painting style. We've done watercolor. We've done claymation.
Really? Awesome.
Smoke characters, all like trained on very specific data sets with artists that actually made that original artwork versus just sampling or creating stuff out of thin air.
I feel like all of this is really amazing, but I still want to know, like, do you have any red lines for you? And how do you advise younger creators that are navigating this and might not have the same red line?
Sure. I mean, I think you have to be very careful with what is considered like final pixel. Like what is the thing that makes it on screen? How much human authorship is behind that? Can you indemnify what's on screen to human creation? I think leading up to that in development, I think it's all fair game. And that's because we've always stolen in the development phase. We've always made rip reels. We've always taken a clip. I mean, you've done documentary work. You're like, oh, that's a nice clip. Yoink, I'm gonna just put that in my edit or you mood board something and it is more one-to-one stealing than AI is. AI is kind of obscuring, diffusing the process quite literally. And so I think if you are in that ideation phase and you just want to see it, if it's working or not working sooner in the process and fail sooner in the process, I think it's all fair game. I actually, if it's going to exist, right?
Yeah.
If it, and it does exist. So I think, at this point, the dam is already broken. You might as well use the tools in your tool belt in that development stage. But as you get closer to what the audience sees, I think that's where you really have to insert your agency and the human authorship and the team collaboration to get to that final thing. Because in that development phase too, that is a very small team with very little money always. And so they're always picking and choosing and stealing things to make sure they get the green light, or that they even know that the story is going to work. Or you're blocking things out with action figures that are not the action figure IP for the film that you're doing. Whatever, however your process is to like try to like create an animatic. And so I think that, so I think it just depends on what stage of the process you're in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my stance.
I also feel like that kind of part and parcel of that is also that like the budget of the project you're working on really actually carries with it a lot of weight. So the way that Sony Pictures Animation does this is probably not going to be the same way that you do it, or at least I would imagine.
Yeah.
Like,
but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm actually very curious what they're doing. I mean, I know that they're not doing nothing. Yeah.
I'll plead the fifth there. This was to kind of show how the training process is also removing data, but as we curate a person, what gets lost in there, and this is both commentary on AI, but also commentary on how we present ourselves online, and the kind of code switching we do from even different social media platforms to how you talk to your friend, to how you talk to your followers online. And the kind of parts of your humanity or parts of your identity or personality that get kind of pruned and lopped off, and what are you repressing in that process? And so the film is about the kind of repressed sides of someone boiling back up to the surface.
And it's a good thing, right?
I mean,
no, just kidding.
That you should at least like not just throw them into a black void.
I think that certainly comes across.
Yeah. So when talking to Poppy, I was like, oh, would you ever use this earpiece in real life? And she was like, well, I have to do a lot of these fan meet and greets, and like it's really tough for me with having social anxiety and not knowing what to say, that I wish I could just coast through those experiences because they're really taxing. They're really exhausting experiences. And I was like, that's interesting. Like she actually would use it for something.
Right.
And so that was kind of the inspiration for this scene.
I'm kind of speechless about that, right?
Yeah.
That I just hadn't really thought about.
Well, imagine you doing this for 3 hours.
Right.
And you have a barrage of people, varying degrees of, stalker, like on the stalker spectrum, literally, that are, talking to you relentlessly. It's taxing on the brain.
Yeah.
But you're kind of contractually obligated to maybe do something. So, yeah, I thought that kind of tension was really interesting to me, that, it's both a good and a bad thing.
I feel like this is like the ultimate way to break this framework that I was trying to set out, because I do think it's just getting at this both and thing that I'm like, that it's making the piece good too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Lightning round.
Okay.
Brainstorm video titles.
That's okay, because there's already a formula to them.
Yeah. So I feel like that means utility kind of.
Yeah.
It's not
exactly.
like your art is, if your art is video,
if
titles, you should do it yourself.
If it's like worded incorrectly, it doesn't reach your audience, then what was the point?
Here's an interesting one, because I feel like you probably have complicated feelings about it. Creating animated characters.
Yeah, which animated characters?
Exactly, like
foreground or background or middle ground? Are they speaking? Are they?
I'm going to give you a real example.
Yeah.
Let's say I got a 7-year-old daughter. She is into the fact that I make videos.
Cool.
And would like to collaborate. And I feel like I would like to collaborate with her too. And I think it would probably be best if I didn't use her face and I made her an animated version of herself that she can walk away from later.
Yeah.
Right? And so she would be the lead character. But I don't, no one's giving me any money to do this, right? Like
that. Yes, I would say, like, and if you and your daughter bond over this experience and you have this like token, I'd say it's like way over there.
Yeah.
Like that's
right. Who is hurt by that?
Yeah.
But then again,
if that's, TV show and it's fully, there's no animators involved in creating the animated characters. This
is the core of the question though, because then it's like, so you're saying it's like over here, right? But this is how I made the pilot.
Yeah.
And then I show it to someone.
Sure.
And then they're like, okay, go. Like it becomes the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, money and who's doing what is a factor in all of these.
Right, because at some production houses they would say, well, now the budget's is this. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah. Again, it's who's the user. I think if it's this scenario where it's some guy or some person who doesn't have the means to express themselves, but they have a really strong idea that they feel like is going to resonate with an audience, they should just make it by any means possible. Yeah. People have been making, like Mumblecore came out of working with a crew of 5 people. Yeah. The crew is the same people on the screen. There was no like gaffers, and Dogma Films as well, like had very little crew. There's like an asterisk on this. Yeah.
Right, because if you're you're feeling more like this, basically.
I feel like I have a responsibility to like bring people into the fold.
Okay, well, I don't want to wrongly, because but it's interesting to me because it is like there's this range.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more. How about this one I was mentioning? Right, this is a little bit more complicated. Who do you trust for feedback?
I would say you can't use this you can't rely on this solely.
Yeah.
But why not? If it's got the, it's trained on all the greatest film and art critics in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be it might give you insight that you're not going to get from a friend or a colleague.
Should we put it like right here? Because it's like it's pushing you to be better, but who knows if it's ethical?
Yeah. I mean,
you put it up here. Here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to capture you.
I'd say here would be like too far that I'm like relying on AI for feedback.
Yes. I'm more thinking about like the world in which, like, I don't want this technology ever trying to make me feel like I don't need those other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. If you're only using AI for feedback, it's problematic. Yeah. Because it's going to give you, it's not going to always challenge you in the same way.
You need people
but it might give you insight
to tell you when you're whack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
the AI is like not so good at that.
Yeah. You need someone that's like not so sycophantic.
I mean, you clearly do a lot of this, VFX asset creation. So
yeah. I mean, I put that like right up here with the re-rendering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Are there things that you feel like more morally gray about? Right, or that you feel like maybe go in this danger zone?
Maybe that's like where this kind of goes.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Right. It's bringing you closer to your vision, but maybe you don't want that to be the only way it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I just think it's interesting to acknowledge, right? Like, even you're like literally working at like a company at the forefront of one of these weird axes of AI. It's very different from the big tech approach.
Yeah.
And even you probably, struggle with this a lot for some things.
Yeah. For sure. No, it's something I think about a lot. I'd say, I mean, it's maybe related to the AI for feedback, is like in that early ideation phase when you're coming up with an idea. Mm-hmm. And the Poppy film is like a good, example of that. Is you want to pour as much of your own lived experience or whatever, just observations into the script, into the outline as you can. But that process, the writing process, is really tough and tedious, and you may abandon an idea, too early on, whatever. And so there's this danger zone of like, well, what does this idea look like? Can I start to see it? Can I, and I'm not talking about visually see it, but like actually see what the beats of it are. And can I help flesh this like kernel of an idea out to see if it's worth pursuing? And so then the AI will start to like extrapolate, a kernel into a whole bucket of popcorn.
Right.
Cheesy metaphor. I didn't mean to do that, but
I like cheesy popcorn.
But that's where it gets a little dangerous, where you're like, you don't want the AI then to influence the writing.
Yeah.
But it can be a very good writer's assistant.
I feel like the closest thing I have for that is research help, but that's
Yeah.
not doing the thing that you're saying.
Yeah.
Like this seems like the positive version of it,
Right.
where like the negative version of it is like it's your co-writer maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. AI as a co-writer, I think
That's in danger zone.
That's in like major danger zone because the research, the same tool that's doing the research can also do the writing. So it's not just a library, right?
There you go. And I also feel like what you're saying, it's important because this is the moment where it's both, I know writing a video can be an emotionally taxing and really difficult task. And I want it to be over faster.
Yeah.
And yet that is not where the good came from.
Right.
Essentially. Like that it, like I actually
Getting
do
through it
want you to
faster.
feel my struggle
Yeah.
a little bit.
Well, so in the danger zone, and I don't know how you like
Yeah.
turn it into a star, but it's essentially what you're saying is the efficiency, like over efficiency, over
Yes.
automation. And automation maybe is has too many connotations, but it's like
This is really
like
hard.
The over like making the process too efficient. You lose something there.
You get to music.
Yeah.
Right? And it's
Because-
like, who's going to decide?
Yeah.
A person is going to decide.
You both want to see if it's working sooner,
Right.
or failing sooner, like Pixar does, right? That where they like,
Yeah.
they try out like 7 different versions of the story, and they want to get to that answer as soon as they can, so they can begin production. But if that whole process of like them exploring the 7 different storylines happens in a week, like I don't know. It's like probably not going to be the same as if they spent, 6 months exploring those 7 different storylines. And you lose the discovery and the spontaneity of riffing with your idea and exploring and letting life kind of filter in when that time is compressed.
I feel like what you're describing is also like genuinely like an earnest case for democracy, right? That it is more chaotic. It takes longer. It is not fun to do the thing that I wanted to do. And now everybody's got to say, and like, they're going to change my thing.
It's like,
and it's actually better because you want them to be the audience
it's like
too.
Democracy is functioning when everyone loses or something.
I mean, a little bit. Yeah.
Like there shouldn't be like one clear winner in a democracy.
Right.
So it's sort of almost disappointing for everyone, right? But would you not want it to exist? Like you still want to go through those steps, and you still want to vote, and you still want to have the primaries and whatever. But like, it was tough to get there.
I just feel like there's like this interesting aspect of how like that reality about AI makes it hard to just, it proves the lie that like there is one author of great art, right?
Yeah.
Like, because actually it was shaped by all of the people
Definitely.
around it.
I'm not like, I don't fully subscribe to like the auteur theory. I think, obviously. But like, if you look at, Kubrick, if you look at all these people, they actually surround themselves with a very similar crew from film to film, if not like one for one the same crew. And there's a reason for that, is because of the collaborative, the insight these people have that inform the process.
Brian Eno calls this scenius, right? That like Pablo Picasso is only possible in the context of the art movement around him.
Right.
Right. That Stanley Kubrick isn't Stanley Kubrick without those other collaborators.
Right.
Right. Then he's just like a guy.
Yeah.
And like, no one wants the guy. They want the scene. And that's actually what you're plugging into as a fan too. Yeah,
absolutely. You want the collective consciousness that created that world. Again, there are cases to be made for individual artists, but fundamentally film, it like the best versions come out of like people challenging each other and friction.
Yes.
And if you don't have the friction, you're going to get the most boring version of what you're setting out to do.
I think that's true for things beyond film.
Yeah.
We broke more of this down during a live stream we had on the free Digital Spaghetti Patreon, where we dug into data gathered from over 300 of you that filled out the gift or cursed interactive. And so far, the data shows that the majority of you are opportunists when it comes to AI. That's our digital laundry folding zone. You're not sold on this really being good for new art forms, but you're not opposed to saving time with it. And we'll be doing more miniseries like this on different topics. Honestly, it's probably not we. I think that my role here is AI scapegoat.